Hi there, welcome back. I have one last thing to do with experiment number 2. I think one last thing. You never know. So I'm going to try and do it quickly and then do a little flip through of, uh, of this book that I have already fallen in love with. and it's going to be a pleasure to use and fill. Yes, it will be my ideas book, but it's also going to be a journal for me. I can see it becoming a quote journal. So that's why it will, I'm not sure how often it will come out to play on screen, because some of my quotes, most of my quotes that I enjoy are uplifting, but some quotes are the kind of quotes that say something that's in your gut, and say it so much better than how your brain says it. And they become meaningful to you, but they're also extremely personal. So for that reason, I can see that some of my quotes that will be in here may not be for general viewing. They will be private, but the book itself I will be using as ideas because I love the things that I've done in here. But of course there's something missing, and I'm sure many of you have been yelling at your screen saying what's missing from a book that I've made for myself. This is like the ultimate vanity book, but it's my book. So, you know, I mean, there's Catherine up and down the spine there. There's the letter B for Brown, and a lot of my favorite things, and I put my little label on the back there. But little Catherine's not in here, and she needs to be in here. So this is a bigger little Catherine, and she's going in. So I need to fussy cut her, and I'm going to do that now, and then we will put her in the book, and we'll do a flip through so that you can have a guided tour now before I start writing in it. And then it won't be so easy to do a guided tour. I may end up with post-it notes over some of the pages if I do end up referring to this book again. So hold on while I fussy cut this young lady, and we will get her in the book. Okay, so little Catherine's ready for her new home. And Of course, I realized the best spot to put her. It's right here. There she is. So, glue. I'm going to use glue stick, and then if necessary, if I see little bits trying to curl up, I'll tuck a bit of art glitter glue underneath. But I can always doctor it later. It's my book. I mean, I've said it before, it happens with all paper crafts that we create. From time to time, they need our medical help. Glue is wonderful, but it is not perfect, and it won't hold forever. And sometimes it needs our assistance and fresh application, or a little tuck underneath here or underneath there. It's just the way it is. There we go. Let's put her in. It'll cover up whatever that was. And then we'll get to look at her instead. I'm going to put her down here so she's got both feet firmly planted on the ground. If you're looking at my legs and thinking, that looks odd, yes, I am knock-kneed. And I'm also pigeon-toed, which probably explains why I've got bad knees now. Knock-kneed and pigeon-toed is just not a good combination. It's a good predictor of arthritis later in life in your knees. It's okay. Hasn't stopped me yet. So here we go. Let's do a little flip through of experiment number 2. I know some of my subscribers, their favorite videos are the flip throughs. So if you are here just for the flip through, I needed to create a paper inspiration book for myself, mostly for pages, not for pockets, not for tuck spots, not for tags. I suspect they will eventually end up in here because I intend to also use this book myself. This book will not be going into my Etsy shop, if that's what anyone happened to be wondering. I've had a few people ask if I will make one again, and I do think I will. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Hopefully I will get it right the first time if I make another one. Hence the reason it's experiment number 2, because experiment number 1 flopped due to me. So this was a completely blue book of American verse, and it is, as you can see, no longer blue, and it now looks like it's got an old banded spine on it and old threads hanging out the top that maybe at one time were very pretty lace, and they actually were. And I collaged the front and back covers, so it's not digital. You can actually feel the different pieces of paper that are collaged down. Many I chose for a reason. Some I've talked about, some are quiet little secrets for me. Artists do that. And yeah, I really love the way the cover turned out. It's I'm pleased with it. I like a little bit of lace. I like the gilding wax and the fleur-de-lis. I like that it says journal on the end. and it's got a good feel for it. It has a good pinch, so I have plenty of room to start filling in. It has 9 signatures and a hidden hollow back spine here. So there's plenty of room in here for me to do as whatever it will become. I've left this here simply so you know that this is not just decorative, it's useful. It's a tuck spot. If I come across a quote that is on a loose piece of paper and I don't have time to actually put it in the book yet, I will be able to tuck it in there. This is vintage wallpaper right here. This was a business folder divider for a metal file folder for office supplies. Same with this. This was the bottom. This was the bottom of the page with the letter U because I messed up on the first try doing this. If you watched, you know what? It is what it is. This is some ribbon that is a few places in the book. It's the only amount I have left. So for the time being, I've tied it on here so that I know where it is. And if I want to use it as I work in the book, I will know where it is. I don't anticipate it will stay there forever. And again, I've just put a Rolodex card in there so that for the sake of the flip through, you can see that this is a usable pocket. I didn't like the way the fabric that I chose for my text block, which I love, sort of clashed with the wallpaper, which I love, and the book's for me, so that's fine. It's a junk journal made from leftover stuff. So I've run some silk embroidery ribbon down the edge to break those two apart and hopefully make them a little more comfortable beside each other. So here we go. First page is from Shakespeare. It is just because I got a kick out of it, and I will be using this book for many, many years as my inking pages and working pages. The first page did get a quote. I have never found the author for this quote, but I love it, and it has gone up on my wall. I like it so much, and I need to be reminded of this constantly. What you create does not have to be perfect. Hence the reason why this paper doesn't match the fabric holding my text block together. I don't know how many pages are in here. I haven't counted yet. I just know that there are 9 signatures. The pages vary because however many folios go into a signature depends on how thick the papers are that go into that signature. So thin papers could have more papers in the signature, and thick papers could end up with less folios in that signature. Tea-dyed paper that I created using Witchcraft Do You Do's mom's technique of rolling it up in a ball to let it dry. A little stamping and a stamp, an Italian stamp that came in Happy Mail from Anna, made by Granath. This is from a children's vintage reader, and I've been hanging on to it forever. Nothing ever happens. And why save it? So I used it for me. And this is a page out of the original Experiment No.1 text block. But I liked that text block better than the text block. Experiment No.2 happened to be made by the same publisher, so I lucked out. The book was the exact same size, and I was able to use my signatures that I had already begun to prepare before I botched up the cover. Because I didn't follow my own rule of make sure your cover's finished before you start making your signatures, because if you mess up the cover, you'll have a whole bunch of signatures that don't fit into your cover. Flat paper ruffle, and also sewing of just an interesting piece of leftover paper. As ever, unusual sizes, shapes of paper. That's an offcut of the tea-dyed paper. Little tuck spot from, again, Happy Mail from Anna. She sent something for Kirby when she sent me some Happy Mail. And this is a page out of an encyclopedia book, not from a set. They used to also make books that would just have a paragraph on each topic. I was heavily influenced by Nick the Booksmith's journal she created. I forget the name of the journal now, but it was as if it was a sample book for a person who supplies to book binders and printers. So this, many of the things you will see in this book are my hats off, as ever, to our beloved Nick the Booksmith. This is genuine ledger paper that came with the numbers on it. I didn't have to put that number on it. And this is old glassine that has naturally yellowed. So I've left myself lots of room for journaling. This is a tuck spot, so I can tuck paper in there. You'd be surprised at what little it takes to hold paper in place, rather than always resorting to paper clips and bulldog clips and other such things. Just gluing something on and leaving an edge free will give you a place to tuck paper. I purposefully wanted a very chaotic look to the profile of the pages here. So if you're wondering, gee, that looks like a mess, then I got the job done right. A little bit of stamping here, as Nick does digital. She calls it digital stamping. So she obviously uses graphics that she has gathered from, I know the National Library, I believe, has copyright-free images you can use, and I don't know how to do that, so that actually is a stamp. Another page from the text block. Tea-dyed paper. This is also a tip of the hat to the raggedy that Nick put into that bookbinder's journal, but I simply made my version of her raggedy into the first page of my second signature. And on her raggedy, she had an envelope paper clipped to it, so I have paper clipped an envelope just to that page. Now here I wanted to do a bit of work, so while I've got it open, I will do it. This is a folio out of a book, and I wanted it to also be able to be a tuck spot, but I want to remind myself that it's a tuck spot and not just a sideways page. So the top page, I'm going to round that corner, and I may just put a little bit of ink just onto it so it looks maybe a little dirty, a little yellowed, and stands out a bit from the corner that's underneath it, like that. Let me lift it up so you can see. And that way I will know, oh yes, that's a tuck spot. There might be something hiding in there. 1937 Pittman shorthand page, ledger paper, text block, more text block. I'm tempted, if I need to glue these together and make a tuck spot. And again here, I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to round that, dirty up the edge so that it stands out a bit from the corner underneath it, like that. Lift up so you can see, and then I'll know, oh yes, that's a tuck spot. This is a tip out. Nick did some digital stamping. I did actual stamping. And for me, who I am a really, really bad stamper, this is fantastic for me. A raggedy ruffle. It's not intended to be a beautiful ruffle. I intended it to be a little bit askew and wonky looking. And I wanted this side of it that's attached to the paper to be as flat as possible to reduce the bulk. I've left lots of room in between the signatures, as you can see by the paper, the fabric that's between it, so that it can also get fat closer down in towards the folds of the folios. Tea-dyed invoice paper. I Frankensteined some pages together. This is actually a page, again, out of this book. I use it for inking, but I also just use it because sometimes it's got cool illustrations on it. And to make it wider, I just Frankensteined some ledger paper offcut onto it. Some more offcut from tea dye, some more ledger paper. This is an offcut from some vintage ledger paper that I believe was gifted to me from Kelly. And more of the original text block. And there's why I wanted this page. This paper is so thin, I folded it in half and glued it together, so that's why it's a little bit tougher now. It's actually glued together. That explains why this side's upside down and this picture is right side up. And I forget who that is. It's not Romeo and Juliet. It's not Tristan and Isolde. I forget who the star-crossed lovers are there. Here's something else that I forgot to finish on. I want to put an eyelet so I can dangle something on that. I'll do it someday. Again, left myself room so that the inner parts can get fat if they need to. This is from a vintage sewing book, and it was a chapter on how to recover furniture, make slip covers for furniture. And I Frankensteined some Edith Holden paper to it, and this is also a tuck spot. And I went and left my little piece of paper. Oh, here it is. So that's also a tuck spot. More tea-dyed offcut, and I just put a tab on it. This is a movable tab that also can hold things. There's no paper clip inside this. It's just made with an old newspaper clipping, and I glued it onto an old file folder and glued it together. I purposefully glued it so that when it's on the page, it's sideways. You can glue these so that it fits on like a nice tab, and you'll see some later in the book. A tuck spot made from vintage composition paper. There's lines on it, so I could literally write a quote, 2 or 3 words at a time down on this. And then I could also write myself something and then tuck it in there for a little privacy. This is some beautiful old ledger paper that was gifted to me from Alice. Ledger paper, offcut tea-dyed paper. Edith, I gotta put in Edith, even if it's for a journal for me. I just love the way the tea dyeing turns out when you wrinkle the paper into a ball and let it dry while it's still in a ball, and then you iron it later. It's from, I believe, an old Ladybird book. which are appropriate in Canada because our spelling and grammar is English based. So our words like color and honor have a U in them. I just felt like doing a little bit of collaging on the edge of this offcut. So I had lots of this offcut of the punched holes from a spiral bound book that I took apart and did that with it. Little pocket. I didn't put many pockets in because I realized I was getting off topic. This book was not my intention to be a sample of tuck spots and pockets. But I did have fun doing it, so why not? This is one of those paperclip holders that I made. This was actually hot pink and white before. I found a package of them at my thrift store and I recovered it using photos from a 1960s high school yearbook. And I just love the pictures of the people in glasses. I love them. I got a thing for glasses. I've embraced my glasses after all these years. And I just think they're great. Especially those old styles. More pretty pictures from the Ladybird book. This is with out of that 1908 Sears reprint book that looks so cool, and they're so wonderful to use in junk journals. And you just do this technique with a glue stick. You get a piece of whatever paper it is you're going to use, and it can be nothing because you're going to tear it up. You scribble on your glue stick, you slap down your paper, let it dry thoroughly, and then you simply tear away whatever paper didn't get glued down. And this is what you get left, and it looks really cool. It adds something interesting to the edge of the page. More regular stamping because I can't digital stamp. A page out of a vintage typing textbook. Page out of a children's reader. And, I've got a thing for robins. I forget what year this is. It's probably 50s or 60s. This page is from the original text block from Experiment 1. I went to put a fake tear in the page, and I was so vigorous about it, I fake tore both pages. So there's faux cellophane tape on both of them. And then a little ruffled fabric tab that I learned from our friend Nancy over at Wishes and Weeds, and some fun sewing on there. Ledger paper again. So some repetition in here. That's fine. Once it's full, it won't appear to be repetitious at all. A little bit of vintage lace that came in Happy Mail, again from our friend over at Wishes and Weeds. Offcut. This was from the day I showed you how to pinch a flat ruffle. Again, jeepers, she's really getting mentioned a lot. Nancy taught us how. Just using a glue stick and pinching your fabric together and flattening it down. And you can get a nice flat but pretty ruffle. I do this all the time. I save the backs of steno pads that I find at thrift stores and use them as stencils. Oh, you shouldn't still be in there. Out you come. Another Frankenstein piece of paper to make it more of a full size. So this is ledger paper from Alice. This is paper from a plant diary I have. This is some leftover of the offcut from the steno book. And again, another tuck spot, purposefully glued so that it attaches askew so that it looks like it's hanging out of the book. And both sides are kind of fun. I got those papers from the sample box that was given to me by Your Creative Studio. A little stamping down there. I'm proud of myself in my stamping this time. This is from a welding textbook. I liked that it looked like it's been hand typed. Somebody must have at one point, and the other side's blank, so it's quite usable for in a journal. Little Edgar Allan Poe there. I've yet to read Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, it's true. So many people seem to love him. I guess I should, but I haven't. I don't like scary things, and I keep getting the impression he writes scary things. I used some of my new little journal tabs or labels on this tab up here. I just had some fun with it. The other side of the Frankenstein paper looks cool. It's a fun way to use up odd-shaped papers and make them useful. We created this whale tail tab together from another book, and it says Homer on it, so I liked it. It reminded me of Homer Hickam. Page from Beatrix Potter book. Every once in a while there are a few pages that are glued to the back of the spine, and they get torn in half, so I used this method to attach them together. It makes for a really nice thin floppy hinge as opposed to using tape, washi tape, or even using paper, and it makes it interesting to look at. So some oddly triangular shaped graph paper. This is a vintage Denison label up here of a little bluebird with a little orangey tummy. So I just stapled on this little odd shaped piece of paper that was in my meatball box of things. So here's an instance where I've made a tuck spot, and it actually looks like a tab. And it easily, again, can hold paper in it. And I happened to be gifted 2 of them that match, so I used one on both sides. And I just love this horsehead tab in the book. So you can do those, and they can go on the side as well. So they're movable and not very bulky. More of Beatrix Potter. Another flip out, some more successful stamping on my part. Yay! Here is, again, one of those paperclip free tabs that holds papers for you. And this one looks like a traditional tab. And you can do this just in plain cardstock and put a label on it and actually make it look like a tab if that's what you want to do. I'll lift it up so you can see. And this one doesn't match. It's got a Robin tobacco card on the back, a vintage one. And you'll see they only need to be the same width. They don't need to be the same length because it won't matter once it's on the page how long one side is as opposed to the other. And again, it could go up at the top if you want. They can go anywhere you want. This is some leftover packing paper from an Amazon package. Offcut of the tea-dyed paper because I didn't have any 8.5 by 11 tea-dyed paper left, and I had to get into my tea-dyed ledger paper. Marching band paper, vintage. I didn't skimp on myself in using some good stuff, so I'm proud of myself for that. I think it could have been easy to skimp on myself. Oh, it's just for me. I won't use anything good. And I'm really glad that I used some good stuff. Made a cool little tuck spot out of a page out of one of those encyclopedia type of books, all in one kind. Tore the edge, inked it up and mucked it up, and glued down some mucked up cheesecloth. And here's some more of this ribbon here, sewn down on it before I glued it onto the page. And I like how that turned out. That was an inspiration from, I think it's think Nancy did something similar to this in one of her fern books that she recently did. I seem to recall that's where I saw the mucky cheesecloth along the edge of the page, and I liked how it looked. So more of the tea-dyed paper, and here we are at the end. What I did was, because this hole is actually for the alphabet divider for the business file, and a metal pole usually goes through there, I purposefully ran it off the page so that it becomes part of the messy profile of this journal that I purposefully wanted extremely messy. I wanted the top messy. I wanted the side messy. I left the bottom quite tidy. Anything that's sticking out the bottom is just fabric-y, so that if I need to stand it upright on my bookshelf, I can do that with no problem. And it's just got one of those pretty profiles when you fan it out and you like looking at it. And all those interesting things sticking out the side that are just the real deal. And I anticipate there will be more by the time I'm finished actually gluing things in this book. So this book was a pleasure to create. I get the feeling it's going to be a pleasure to fill. And thanks for coming along with me on my experimental journey. Experiment number 2, I could remove this if I want. That's not permanent. It moves. It trust me. It's making a liar out of me. But it would come out if I wanted to, because it actually has the original printing from this illustration underneath it. It says Robin Redbreast underneath. But it very quickly became known as Experiment Number 2, and I thought, who am I to change its name? It earned its name. So it's Experiment Number 2. And that's usually the way journals work when I make a journal. Thanks for joining me today. If you're still here at the end of this this lengthy talkative flip through, first of all, I appreciate you very much. I hope you'll take a second and hit the like button for me. And if you haven't subscribed and you're interested in how I make my journals, I hope you'll think about subscribing too. And in the meantime, take care, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon at some point this week. Bye.